exists and am invoking the provisions of RSA 91A:2, Roman numeral 3B. Federal, state, and local officials have determined that gatherings of 10 or more people pose a substantial risk to our community and its continued efforts to combat the spread of COVID-19. In concurring with their determination, I also find that this meeting is imperative to continue the operation of the town government and services, which are vital to the public safety and confidence during this emergency. As such, this meeting will be conducted without a quorum of the physical body present in the same location. At this time, I also welcome members of the public accessing this meeting remotely. Even though this meeting is being conducted in a unique manner under unusual circumstances, the usual rules of conduct and decorum apply. We will start by taking a roll call attendance for our HDC members. Please state your names, whether there's anyone in the room with you, and we will kick things off. So let me start with Doug.
Doug McCallum. I'm here alone in this room in my house.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Pam?
I'm Pam Jedham, and I'm here alone.
Thank you, Pam. Julie?
Good evening. I'm Julie Gilman, Select Board Rep, and I am in my office alone.
Thank you, Julie. Grayson?
Grayson Shepherd here in my house alone.
Thank you, Grayson. And Gwen?
Gwen English, Planning Board Rep, and I am in the room by myself.
Okay, and thank you very much, Gwen. And I'm Patrick Gordon, HDC Chair, and I am in a hotel room by myself. So we will get things kicked off with a continuation of the public meeting. Let me pull this up. Hold on one second. Okay, I should have stated earlier that today is Thursday, January 21st, 2021. It's approximately 7 o'clock, and this is the Historic District Commission for the town of Exeter. Our first public hearing is the continuation of the public hearing on an application of Robert Lang on behalf of 154 Water Street Company, a change in appearance to the existing structure located at 28 Front Street. The subject property is located in the C1 commercial area, commercial zoning district. It is tax map parcel number 72-160, and this is continuation of case number 20-9. So, Robert, if you want to reintroduce the application, and then we can get into discussions.
Okay, this is Robert Lang.
Go ahead, thank you.
And we're doing a project on Front Street in Exeter that we originally had started, and we asked to stop by Doug Eastman, the town of Exeter building inspector, after we were granted a permit to do it. And so we're back with you guys again to ask for allowance to put on vinyl siding on the building, on the cedar impressions on the front, because he can't stop the rot and the constant paint jobs that he's putting on the building. And it was under my understanding the last time that we talked that we were all going to get together down there and walk around the building together. And I thought someone was going to hold a Barbara McAvoy to set up that meeting that we could all get together on.
Yeah, that was the intention. It happened to fall right before the holidays, and we kind of thought that a collection of any group was putting us all at some undue risk. So we decided to not meet as a group, but did encourage everyone to go down to see the sample that you had requested and to walk by the building themselves. So I'm hoping, I did just recently this last week ask the members if they had a chance to get down to town offices to see that sample. And then taking a walk by the property. So I'm hoping everyone has their individual information collected for tonight's meeting.
And I have walked around, and thank you for not stopping me. I mean, nobody said a word as I just walked all around the building.
Nice. All right. So as the application exists right now, there was two parts of the application. The first part was around the entry doors of the existing building. There were cedar shakes that were being replaced with cedar shakes and there were some unique angles there that the vinyl shake material did not allow for replication of. So that was part one. And if I can speak for the commission, it seemed to appear as if that was a replacement in kind and was not necessarily a concern of ours. Where we had concerns and where we wanted to have further discussion on this and further data collection on this was the rest of the elevation shows a running bond of a flat wood panel clapboard on the outside of the building. That material is going to be the nailing substrate that you are going to be hanging this new vinyl siding off of. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that was the part two that is why Doug Eastman said this needs to be reviewed. So please submit an application. And so that's what we're here tonight to discuss.
Yes.
Commission members, did you have a chance to get down to town hall to see the sample that was being presented? And did you? Okay, great. Thank you. I see head nods. Also, did you get a chance to walk by the property to see the existing elevation that's there now, the existing material pattern and everything that's there now? Okay.
Yes.
So that being said, I think we have enough evidence collectively to be able to have a good discussion tonight about this. I'll start it off by saying the material that I saw does aesthetically had a good aesthetic because they were using real cedar shakes as forms to form this new vinyl. My reservations is it's still vinyl. It's still a vinyl siding. The application is still hung from the building because the expansion and contraction of vinyl is going to be much greater than other materials. And I don't see it as the best solution. It goes against our recommendations of using vinyl siding within the historic district, even regardless of its appearance as something else. And ultimately, my biggest reservation and my biggest hang up and recommendation to the commission is the existing pattern that's on the building now, that running bond flat wood clapboard, is, I believe, only one of three examples of that architectural style in the town. The one of the other two being Julie's house. And I will call on Julie in a minute to ask about previous repairs to her own residence in terms of having to replace those and the ease at which that was done or difficulties, and maybe we can form a better discussion about that.
Okay.
Julie, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Surprisingly, I haven't had to do anything to the front of my house. It's only on the front, like the building we're talking about here. It's in very good condition, but the bay window that I have out front did have a leak on its roof. So we had to put in some new flashing, which meant removing part of a section of the facade. And the roofer that we had did that. And I know, Robert, you had talked about the insulation inside the walls that you have now, because the house is about the same age, came falling out. But that was something that we knew was going to happen. But when it was replaced, I couldn't tell it had been removed. I haven't had, and maybe it's just the upkeep of the house, the difference between the buildings, but I haven't had any rot problems or really had to deal with this issue whatsoever. And so, all I can say is maintenance and preservation. I'm on the sunny side. I have the south facing. Yeah. I get the sun in the morning anyway. And it's the opposite. So it's the opposite of what Robert has. So maybe the conditions are different.
Did you see the condition of the front of the building?
Yes. And
Did you see the rot?
It wasn't big enough to stand out to me, but that doesn't mean it's not there.
Okay.
Yeah.
The whole right side of it, above the bay and to the right of that is rotten up top.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely saw breakdowns of finishes, and certainly water getting behind a finish, it's not going to, it's going to absorb water and eventually hold on to it and rot out. So I did see breakdowns of finishes, but I didn't poke at any wood and
Yep.
to try to investigate any rot.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll go ahead and I'll call on other commission members to give their comments and create some discussion points for us. Doug, go ahead.
Well, I'm appalled that the building department would issue a permit on a building of that age without a historical commission review.
Mhm.
That just shouldn't happen. And we should somehow, maybe that message has already been delivered to the building department, but it's just, it puts us in a really difficult position because in this case, I think that vinyl is an inferior material in spite of its maintenance advantages. From a visual point of view, it expands and contracts, as Patrick said, and what that tends to do is it will make the panels cup. So you get a cupping look over time when the sun comes out. There's a lot of issues with vinyl. It's not a forever material. And it's certainly not historic material. But I must say that the samples I saw were the best vinyl siding I've ever seen. It's the most convincing, but it's not. I don't like the idea of making someone tear out. I don't know what the legal implications of this are.
Well, we took a $7,000 loss so far on this.
Yeah, I know that, and that's not fair, but on the other hand, what are we supposed to do as a historic commission? So if you came to us before you build it, I'd say, no, do it the right way. But now I don't know what the answer is.
Neither do I, but if Doug would have said, or Barbara, that you need to go to the historical society before we can improve the permit, I would gladly done that.
Absolutely.
But when I went to the building department and they issued the permit, they said, go, you're all set to do what you do. We purchased everything and we sided a third of the front and we ripped it down.
Yeah, well, there's something wrong with the process that allows that to happen.
Yep.
Robert, did you say that there's a $7,000 loss and where is that coming from?
I bought all the material which we used on that and we can't put back on it. And not to mention the labor that we caused to put it all up and then take it all down.
Yeah. So I did have a discussion.
Which isn't your fault, obviously. There's nothing to do with you guys.
I did have a discussion with Doug Eastman after the first meeting that we did have. He did review the tapes and see the meeting. And he said that that you had told him you were able to return the material.
No, we were not able to return the material. No, it's in boxes in the basement.
Okay.
No, that's what I recall. The presentation was that the materials had already been delivered.
That they had been purchased and that they could not be returned.
Correct.
Doug had said that you had communicated you were able to return them.
No, the only thing that we could return was the vinyl siding for the rest of the building because we hadn't touched it.
Okay.
But everything for the front that was put up, we could not return. And that was all the cedar impressions, which we couldn't touch.
Maybe that was
a special order, special color. So, we're liable for that no matter what.
Yeah.
Not to mention the 3 days of labor to put it all up and then take it all down again. At Doug's request, which I have no problem doing.
And I think the misinterpretation on the planning department was probably that when you were replacing the cedar around the front doors, that was a replacement in kind, which would not trigger a HDC application. And I think that was the understanding of the planning department's, the extent of work. And that's why they didn't, it wasn't that they weren't aware that it was not a replacement in kind. That was their impression.
On the building permit, I clearly stated that we were installing vinyl siding over the front of the building. and that it has the block finish on it now, and we were going over that with Cedar Impressions.
Okay.
On every application, I've stated exactly what we were going to do to the building department, and supplied them with samples of materials showing them what our intentions were.
Okay. Well, I mean,
which isn't your fault, obviously. You had nothing to do with that.
right.
Yeah.
And Doug's a great guy, and I love Doug. He's a great guy.
Boy, I really hate to say this, but
It's not on the building department, unfortunately, right? It's on the applicant, because the property's within the historic district.
well,
Shouldn't someone have informed me when I filed the application and was approved of it that it was in the historic district? When I put down the address on the application of where it was?
Absolutely.
I mean, I gladly will take responsibility for anything I've done. And when Doug asked me to remove all the siding, I had no problem doing just what he asked me to do.
Well, this is not a court to determine
right.
resolve issues like this. I mean, there are possibilities for appealing this, and there's possibilities for arbitration. But I think our commission is just supposed to decide whether it's an appropriate material based on
Yes.
the guidelines.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is where we are now.
Yeah.
Pam, do you want to speak to the material that's being presented for covering the cedar impression vinyl siding that's being presented to go over the existing running bond wood clapboard?
Okay, first I'd like to apologize to Mr. Lang. You should never be in this position.
Thank you.
And I did go and look at the cedar at the sample, and I have to say it looks pretty good.
Thank you.
And
I need to take into consideration what it's going to look like over time, and I don't know that, but I would guess that you'll have some distortion because of the way that vinyl as material reacts to heat and cold. So
The only difference, sir, if I may say, the only difference on this isn't a true vinyl siding like you would think of as clapboards or other vinyl materials. This has a history. This doesn't move. It's got a temperature thermometer built into each piece as you put it on. Every piece that you put on is regulated by a thermometer and a set of standards. This doesn't warp or it doesn't move like traditional vinyl siding does or things of that nature. It's a completely different product.
So I did look at those installation details that they were talking about, and it was
Right.
It appeared as if the templates that you were given was more for leveling out the material, and depending on the temperature of the material when you were installing it depended on the shape of the material while you were installing it, not necessarily that there's any built-in temperature or built-in thermometer into it. It was more
There's
about
a thermometer actually at the top of each piece.
Yeah.
And a set of guidelines of where you have to put that on the temperature.
Right. So depending on what temperature the material is when you install it, if you gap it too tight and it expands, it's going to buckle.
Right. That's an application problem. That means the person who installed it didn't do a correct job.
Right. What we're saying is, even though the material looks nice as looks and replicates a cedar shake, it's not a cedar shake. It's still vinyl, and it's still vinyl all the way through.
You know, I've seen over the course of my career, I've seen a lot of miracle new materials that haven't quite been as miraculous as were claimed, and I'm not convinced.
Yeah. All right. Julie, well, let's go to Grayson. Grayson has not had a chance yet. Go ahead, Grayson.
Yeah, so I unfortunately did not get an opportunity to go down and see the materials, but I'm relying on everyone else's input. It apparently looks great right now. I do want some clarification. When you say there's a thermometer, and I'm assuming that this thermometer, like Patrick said, is just reads the temperature at the installation, and there's no like control mechanism to control each piece of siding within a certain temperature, correct?
Correct.
I want to make sure that I'm not missing something?
You're not.
Okay. So there's still, I guess, the issue then about the expansion and contraction with the temperature, regardless of the thermometer at the on each piece of siding. But I just want to echo, I guess, what everyone's kind of said. Everyone's sympathetic to kind of the position that you found yourself in, but I think kind of the purview of the board, or strike that, of the commission, is kind of hampered to what our guidelines and recommendations would be. And that, to my understanding, is that vinyl is not favored, I guess, would probably be a fair way to put it. So I'm kind of like what I assume Patrick and Doug and everyone, trying to figure out exactly the best way to remedy the situation that you found yourself in. But unfortunately, my position is probably leaning towards, it's unfortunate, again, that you're here, but the guidelines kind of control what we can recommend. So that's kind of where I am, unless I'm misreading everyone else's thoughts or kind of the wind.
Yeah. So to kind of guide our thoughts on this, what we will be ultimately voting on is whether it's historically appropriate. The material and the application of the material is historically appropriate for that building. The fact that the material is what it is, and that it's going to be changing the pattern, and it's going to be changing the look of the front of the building, that's what we have to deem historically appropriate or not. Okay. So then I'll leave to that, or segue that to giving Gwen some time to make some comments.
Thank you, Patrick. I have to apologize that I had a planning board meeting the night that you were, Mr. Lang, the night that you presented first. So I have missed a fair bit of your presentation, your initial presentation, and only had the minutes to, I didn't go back and look at the video, but I did look at the minutes. But jumping forward to today, I think what stands out to me is Patrick's comment earlier on about this being one of 3 houses with this treatment of siding, and that is not an insignificant issue that we're looking at. In addition to the fact that you are proposing to put a vinyl material on the facade, and visually, I didn't have a big problem with the material that you picked out, but I am concerned that it's not appropriate for the historic district and for this house for lots of reasons. And I guess that's kind of where I stand on the materials that have been chosen. And I have a very old house. I know we have issues with water, and it's always tricky trying to figure out why siding starts to break down, why you start getting water in your walls, and it's always kind of a hunt and seek where that water's coming from and trying to take care of it, whether it's through the tops of windows or improper flashing over some of the decorative embellishments that are on the front of this building. I see there's a break with the underside material showing in the picture that I have, which makes me wonder if there's water coming down, if that was a problem area and there's water coming down that side of the house and getting under the shingles. But I guess ideally I would like to see this repaired in kind, and I would love it if somehow you could easily find where the water is coming from that's posing problems and get that remedied and try to keep ahead of damage going on into the future. I mean, it's a great building, and I like the way it looks now, and I'd kind of like to see it stay the way it looks now with new materials put on it. I do have one question, and I may be adding something that I shouldn't add, but I didn't walk around the building, but I'm wondering if there are other places that are also going to be needing siding, and if there are, if it would be appropriate to use some of the siding that you've already used and have now taken off, if you could use it somewhere else where it wouldn't, and I don't know if that from a historic district position, that may not be appropriate for me to be even mentioning that, but I'm just, I don't know what the other sides look like is, I guess what I'm saying. So,
well, to answer your question, the other sides are clapboards. And the original agreement that I had with the owner was that we were going to remove the clapboards and put blue vinyl siding to match the existing color.
Okay.
On the other sides, because we have the alleyway, we have a lot of roof lines and other things. So it really is a two-part question. Can we put vinyl clapboards on the rest of the building and put wood on the front of the building, or what do we have to do with the entire building?
So I've opened up a can of worms.
Yes, you have.
No, it's all got to get answered before we can do anything else with it. So,
yeah, I think
the rest of that.
Unfortunately, I think the dirty word in all of this is vinyl.
Yeah.
The fact that the material itself is vinyl, and that's it's historically, because it's petroleum based, it does not hold its color retention. It expands and contracts, and it's proven to not be the miracle material that everyone thinks that it is, and it historically has not presented well on historic buildings and keeping the longevity of them. So I want to share my screen really quick if I could. If everyone can see that. So this is the structure that we're talking about. Can everyone see it?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
to me, the vertical lines the horizontal lines that are created from this running bond of the front clapboards that are here now is unique in the sense that it is a running bond, and they appear as brick. Or not brick, but they appear as a wood laid as masonry on the front, as the architectural prominence of this as the commercial and the sides. And you can see back in this back corner here on this the raised part in the back that there's horizontal clapboard that's probably a 4-inch lap or something like that that the rest of the building is. So that becomes the less important. Those all become the less important elevations, and really what is making this building speak in its architectural prominence is that finish on the front of Front Street. So for that reason alone, if this changed to wood appearance shakes, that alone is a drastic difference to the elevation that we see now.
Yeah, Patrick, I just wanted to say there's a name for this type of siding that exists, but at the time that these were built during the Victorian period, part of the reason that they used that style was to replicate stone. Right. So you would look more wealthy than you were because you had a stone house. So it wouldn't have been painted this color originally. We don't deal with paint here, but just to get a perspective on why that pattern and that pattern of siding was an important or a modern thing back when it was done.
And it's interesting because it's almost a hybrid, because there's a lot of ornate detail around the eaves and around the gable ends, but it doesn't have any coining. It doesn't have any of the faux made out of wood coining around the corners that we typically see with these.
No, that's not typical. It depends. Like the house on Front Street that has the same finish does have the coining, the replica of the stone. Mr. Lang, if you don't know what we're talking about, we can talk about coins.
Is that Peter Smith's house?
No, I'm talking down on Front Street. One of the ones near where I think the Academy might even own it.
Okay, I was talking High Street, yes. Because Peter Smith has a house on High Street with it.
Well, I don't recall that, but the purple one on High Street also has the same treatment. But if it was, the one on Front Street in particular is a high-end Victorian, what has been all along. Where I live, I don't have the coins on mine. I just have the corner boards like this place does. These are more, although this one is more ornate than mine is in general. It's the same idea that you make the front the most important part, and then you use the lesser materials on the sides and back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to bring that up, just so we had all had an idea of what the potential physical change or physical appearance change would be to this elevation, regardless of whether it was vinyl or whether if it was wood shake. Even if it was a wood shake, it'd be a drastic difference to what we see today in this elevation. So I'll stop sharing that.
I think that's the part that where I come from. The material, I just stop at the appropriateness of the appearance, and that the wood shake and that style of building just don't go together. So I just stop there. I'm going to say no right there.
Okay. So do we believe as commission members that we have enough information to accept the application as complete, to move on?
I think so.
Okay. All right. May I have a motion to accept the application?
Move to accept the application.
Thank you, Pam.
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. And by roll call, this is for acceptance of the application. Doug?
Yes.
Pam?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Grayson?
Aye.
Gwen?
Aye.
All right, ayes have it. So accepted. I'll open it back up to commission members, or I will look to see if we have any public comment. Seeing none, seeing no attendees, open back up for further discussion before I call for a motion for a approval or denial of the application.
I have a question, I guess, for the other board members, and it's about the sides that are the lesser material appearance. What is your interpretation, I guess, of replacing the what's there now with the proposed materials? Because they're of the lesser side. I understand the properties of vinyl are really not ideal. I've lived through that myself, but again, they're not the prominent sides of the house.
Well, it's not only not the prominent sides. I mean, if you go down between that and the brick house, I mean, even I can barely get down there. So I would almost be tempted to say he could do what he likes and then live with the consequences. But again, how pure do we want to be?
Collectively, as the town, live with the consequences, Pam.
Yes, I know.
My only reservation would be that the vinyl is going to be the same issues will exist. Will it always look as good as day one? No. Will it keep the color retention of that blue that we're talking about right now?
No.
That we're trying to keep? No. It'll fade. It'll get dusty. And those are my reservations. You put the wood clapboards back on the sides and the back. You repair areas and replace where you have to, and you put a quality finish on it. It's going to be a better long-term material with maintenance, of course, than the vinyl siding. And that would be my recommendation.
Okay.
Other members? Any questions or comments on that?
Yeah, actually, one last question. I don't recall from the first presentation. Are the corner boards going to remain, or are they also changing material?
No, they were supposed to stay the way they are.
Okay.
Were they?
We were trying to change the appearance of the building. What's that?
Were they replaced already with AZAC?
2 of them were, yes, gone over to build it out for the siding,
Okay, so
and those will be coming off. So
the trim themselves is not, the trim itself is changing in material, but not in appearance.
correct, yes.
Okay. Good question, Julie. So I think we have a couple different points to make here tonight in terms of calling for a motion that is not necessarily conditional, but it calls out all the different components of what's being asked for in this application.
Yeah, I think it's more, instead of calling it conditional, it's more explanatory about how we came about the decision. You don't want to just say denied.
And I think that what's concerning me is that I wouldn't recommend it as complete denial, because the shakes that are being replaced around the doors are a replacement in kind, which really shouldn't be part of the application at all. Because if it's replacement in kind, it doesn't need to be reviewed by us. Yet it is part of this application. So how do we create a conditional approval with the different areas of the building that are being requested for different materials and different patterns? I think it's three different areas. Around the doors with wood cedar shakes. It is the front elevation being covered by a cedar impression vinyl siding. And the third component is the request of vinyl siding on the sides and the back.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So those three conditions would need to be addressed in the motion. I see Pam taking notes. Does anybody want to make a motion, or do we want to discuss before we call for the motion?
Well, could we do a partial motion, like I move that we accept the cedar shakes around the door?
Yeah, we could divide it up into 3 votes. Yeah. So I'll second that.
Okay. We have a second. So the motion is to accept the cedar shakes around the doors right now. I'll go through roll call. Doug?
Are those
The motion right now?
Okay, no.
The motion right now is just an acceptance of the cedar shakes around the door right now, which is a replacement in kind.
Yeah, I would vote against it. I would have it replaced with the original material.
Okay.
That it is the original material.
Okay, in that case, I'd vote for
the motion.
Well, I guess
we're breaking up. We're breaking.
It doesn't seem to fit, as Julie said. It doesn't seem to fit with the style of that building, and I'm wondering if it really is the original material.
It may not be, but it's such a small area of concern. I don't think they would have made it a stone. They might not have made it overlapping shakes, but they wouldn't have made it. They might have made it flat. I mean,
in light of no information, I will say yes. That cedar shakes are acceptable in that location.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Pam?
Digress.
Yes.
No, it's good. It's a good point. You raised a good point. Pam, I didn't hear
Aye.
Okay. Julie?
Yeah, I'll say aye because it is replacing what was there in kind. So whether or not it was there originally, that's what it is now. So yeah, aye.
Okay. Grayson?
Aye.
And Gwen?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So then I will call for a second motion that is addressing the front elevation of the building and the vinyl impression, the cedar vinyl impression siding to cover the existing finish that's there now. Would someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move a denial of the replacement or the addition of a new material of vinyl cedar shaped replication over the original facade for the reason that the original it is not appropriate for the original style or to replicate the age of the building. I just find it's not appropriate to have a totally different type of pattern, I guess, on that front facade.
Okay. Thank you. Do I have a second for that motion?
I will second.
Doug and I in
sorry.
unison.
I'm not fast enough on the mouse here.
All right. So we'll vote upon that. Doug?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Grayson?
Yes.
And Gwen?
Yes.
All right. So that motion is for the portion of the
Front
application or the vinyl impressions on the front elevation being deemed not historically appropriate.
Correct.
All right. I'll call for a third motion for the sides and the back of the building. And the request is to replace those finishes with, which are wood clapboard right now, with a vinyl clapboard siding. Anyone like to bring the motion forward?
Still
torn.
thinking.
Yeah.
Do we need further discussion? If we're not comfortable bringing forward a motion, do we need further discussion on it?
No, I think I have been the input about the lifetime experience of the or lifetime expectancy of the vinyl, as opposed to how long what's there has been there, and you know, I would have to say I would move to find the replacement of the wood clapboards with vinyl clapboards to be an inappropriate treatment of the building.
Okay. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'm sorry. The issue of it's not historically appropriate, but it's also not allowed, or it's not recommended by our guidelines.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
So it's not just that it's not, we don't consider it appropriate. It's also our guidelines are saying you shouldn't do it.
Just for explanation, we should actually have, no, never mind. Just for explanation, our guidelines are guidelines.
Yeah, I understand.
Julie's making a point that the motion being passed is what is in the zoning ordinance, which gives us the purview to say that it's a jurisdictional administrative decision.
Right.
The guidelines that we have recommend to not use vinyl, but it's not necessarily a linchpin in terms of making a judgment.
Well, one side of that house is pretty visible from the public view, and I believe the back is as well. One side is pretty close to the adjacent building, if not butting up against it. But
The post
it
office.
is. I mean, it's a very prominent location. I would think it would deserve appropriate treatment.
Okay.
No,
So we haven't seconded that motion yet. Mr. Lang, did you want to say something?
yes, I was going to. When you talk about using vinyl siding or any vinyl product on a historical building in Exeter, now you gave me approval many years ago to do the Sears building, which is the McCreel building. The entire front of that is now vinyl.
No.
The slippery slope.
No,
Yeah.
I totally agree with what you're saying, but this isn't the first time that this has been done. And that vinyl product that's on there is no different than what we're using for other materials, and it has never failed.
Well, each
And
case
that
is
Yes, ma'am.
each case is considered separately, and
Yes.
probably no one on this board was on the board when the McCreel project was brought up.
I was.
Okay, well, you might remember, and maybe I was too, but
I think you were.
I was there for a sign change, but I don't think I was there for the whole thing. But so anyway, it's like any other land use committee board that every project is considered on its own and not as a precedent setting.
Yep.
The argument is always made that a precedent has been made, but we consider the projects individually.
Okay.
Okay. So on the table right now is a motion made, does not yet have a second. That is a denial of using vinyl siding on the sides and the back of the building, replacing the existing wood clapboards. Do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Doug?
Yes.
Okay, Pam?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Grayson?
Yes.
And Gwen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So just as a summary of the application, 3 motions were made. The first motion did pass, and it was a finding that the cedar shake around the front door, around the entry, was deemed historically appropriate. The second motion also passed. That was that using the vinyl impressions cedar siding on the front of the building to be attached over the existing materials was deemed not historically appropriate. And the third motion also passed, finding that vinyl siding being used on the sides and the back of the building to replace the wood clapboard that are existing was deemed not historically significant, not historically appropriate. So that would be the summary.
Mr. Lang, before,
Right?
yeah, that's what we did. Mr. Lang, before we end the meeting or end this case, I just want to be sure you're aware of your next step. If you choose to back away from the project or whatever your choice is, but if you're any interaction with the town now, the next step for you is to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and of Adjustment and ask them to overturn our decision. And then there's still the issue of what you were told or not told at the planning department. And I would go one way with that, but I'm not going to recommend it because it's not my job. So
I was born in Exeter. I've spent my whole life here, and I do believe in what you're doing and the historical district. And if it's deemed that it changes the appearance of the building too much in historical, then I wouldn't choose to override that.
Well, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I mean, we have a great town, and I wouldn't want to change, what we're lucky enough to be part of in Exeter.
Well, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
my parents were born here. My father, ran Dreher Holloway for 28 years, and I love this area.
That's where I bought my first car.
Well, so I'm not going to back away from the project. We'll do it with wood if that's what we have to do. But I just want to do what's right.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't like being a bad guy, and I have the same goals. So I hope something will work out.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
I couldn't be happier hearing that. I think that building being restored and the finishes being restored in the original materials is going to be outstanding. It's going to be outstanding. Yeah. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. All right. Thank you, Mr. Lang.
Thank you.
You can stay on if you wish. We are going to move on with the agenda. I can pull that back up. So that was the only public hearing that we did have tonight. Under other business is the approval of the meeting minutes from December 17th, 2020. Would anyone like to bring forth any revisions that are necessary for those?
Would anyone else like to start, or I have my usual quibbles?
I've got a couple, and then I'll let you get after it, Pam. First off, I wasn't sure, and I may be wrong. Is Ken spelled with two N's? Because that was kind of throughout.
Yes.
Okay, so that's fine. And the second, the only other thing that I saw was on the second page, the third paragraph where it says house steps. I think that should read, there is a mix and match of three different things.
Yes.
But that's kind of a small thing.
And Pam, if you're taking notes along with Grayson's notes along with your own,
yep.
Do you mind that becoming the official noted copy? Because I don't have mine with me. I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't throw it in my bag.
Okay, I've
my
got
travels. Sorry.
Okay, going down from mix and match from the house steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 from that. Patrick thanked him and put it out to the commission members for questions or comments. Pam said they have no say. Pam said we, the commission, have no say over color. Okay, so they becomes we. And then I'm happy with the rest of the page. And then we go to the next page and right up at the top. All right. They were talking about the hay door here. He is convinced about losing the hay door. It does not need to be functional, but it has an element that speaks to the primary use. It has an element that speaks to its primary use as a barn. Is the idea, blah, 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 blah. Then the next question is, the next sentence is actually a question. So it should end with a question mark. Or because you want to light it from above, question mark, okay? Okay, he is wondering if there can be a different lighting option that would still allow that to stay, that would still allow the door, instead of that to stay. Then you go down about 2 sentences down. Ken said, what if they put on either side of the door 2 lanterns? Okay, in normal English you would say, what if they put 2 lanterns on either side of the door? Okay, so then they were fine until we go way down, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, anyway, about a third of the way up, we're talking about the garage doors now. Patrick said that the garage doors Ken is proposing. Patrick said put in a caret as to the garage doors Ken is proposing. The commission would ask to stay away from aluminum. If he can, he would ask him to stay away from aluminum if he can. The garage doors themselves can't stay away from anything. Okay? So that's the end of that pass. And then everything is fine until the big fat paragraph on the middle of the next page, the application of Christopher Newport for a change in appearance to at 90 High Street. Okay, that was an easy one, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. He shared his screen to show photos of his home. He pointed to the stoop and said there are 2 things with it. I think he meant there are 2 things wrong with it. Okay? So we put in a wrong, and then it will be right. And that's the end.
All right. Thank you, Pam.
Yep.
Thank you for your revisions and for your colorful delivery as well. Gwen, go ahead. Did you have a few?
Yeah, I just have a couple. On the first page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up from the bottom where it starts with the barn will be replaced in kind. I don't think that was said. I don't think the barn was ever meant to be replaced in kind. Probably the materials on it would be replaced in kind.
Yeah, I think that was in reference to the siding.
Yeah.
They said the barn siding would be replaced in kind.
Okay,
we can't really say a whole structure is going to be replaced in kind.
It makes it sound like the whole structure. So if it could be changed to reflect what you just said, I think that would be more appropriate. And then I struggled with one sentence. Get my notes mixed up with. Oh dear, hold on a second. Sorry. Well, I'm gonna, on the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4th page, where the first line says barn, where it is like a big parking lot. The 4th line up, a 2 barn light is symmetrical. I think I know what they're saying, but that's sort of an odd way to put it. Do you see where I am? And Patrick, you don't have the minutes in front of you, probably.
No, could you read maybe?
It just says, the sentence is, a 2 barn light is symmetrical. That's all it says. The sentence before it, Curtis made a motion to approve the application conditionally with a preservation of the hay door, period. The next sentence is, a 2 barn light is symmetrical, period.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's better with symmetrical lights or symmetrical lights on the barn door.
Okay.
Or we would like symmetrical lights on the barn. There we go. How's that?
Okay. Sorry that I'm not finding, I've got little scribbles now. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I had one other sentence I was struggling with, but I think it's fine.
If you find it, email Pam.
Okay.
Pam's going to deliver the official copy of the if you could, Pam, to the town, because I don't have mine. Then we can get it corrected at that time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have there's a lot of grammatical problems with this, and can I just send my suggestions to Pam?
Okay.
I'd rather not drag it through them all. Yeah.
Yeah. If they're grammatical, I think we can. If it changes something,
if it changes the subject matter, then we need to review it.
Review it as
Well, I can drag you through it if you like.
Well, you know what? If you have if that's a big concern, Pam's had quite a few, Gwen's had quite a few.
Yeah.
And Grayson's had his. They pretty much all covered my concerns. I would move, Mr. Chair, to table these minutes until our meeting in February.
Okay. So that we can discuss Doug's comments at that time.
Yeah, I think if we, I think if everybody writes down their comments and we send them either to, I send them to Liz so that she can.
Well, there's a lot of redundancies and there's a lot of stylistic elements that are just unnecessary. It's like a stream of consciousness, and a lot of it isn't necessary to be in this type of a public document. My personal opinion.
Okay.
Well, I can withdraw my motion. I have no problem doing that. One of the things that's maybe we can talk to Liz about being a little, perhaps less verbatim, because we really want to talk about the subject matter, but not necessarily every single word that we say.
Right.
It takes a little more understanding, I think, than we expect out of our recording.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to follow some of these paragraphs. Okay.
Yeah, I think most times our meeting minutes are really just a text version of the exact conversation in words and phrases and mannerisms and everything, as opposed to, Doug, what you're talking about in terms of being more of a public document. I don't disagree with you. It would take more interpretation of that text to simplify it and keep it to what is most important to motions being passed, discussion points, decisions being made. It takes more work. I guess it's on us to do that, to clean it up after the fact.
Well, yeah, I was going to suggest that we have someone edit these before they come to the commission meeting, but then I thought if I did that, then I would end up getting volunteered for it. So it's a lot of work.
You got it.
Yep.
Wait, who's the clerk?
Got it.
Yeah.
I think that's Pam right now.
Yes, it is.
Well, there you go. So then, are you all, Doug, do you want to go on with what your concerns were, or?
Oh, I'd rather not. Yeah, I'd rather not. I'm willing to discuss this more later.
Okay.
I think the mistake I had, I think, was cleared up in one of Pam's changes. So I had just written over something that I had already noted on, and I think it's okay with her change. So I don't need to add more to it than what I already volunteered.
Do we want to continue the motion that Julie made then to table the minutes, the approval of the minutes till February, so we can discuss Doug's comments in February?
Yeah.
Why don't you can you send your comments, your cleaned up version to Liz?
Yes, to Liz. Okay.
Yeah, because she's the one that
Why
redoes
you
it.
volunteered to do it?
Well, I can redo it. I mean, I've corrected plenty of eighth grade papers, but I think she can do herself.
I'll put on my English professor hat and my English teacher hat and try and mark it up.
Okay.
Okay.
Doug, do you believe, other than you said they're mostly grammatical errors, do you believe that anything changes any of the discussion?
I didn't see anything. No, I didn't see anything that changed the discussion. It was just, I found it very hard to follow the notes. It was a good example.
Then I'm comfortable.
What's happening at the building in that location is that they would have to propose us another sign. That's an example of a sentence that could be simplified.
Yeah.
Okay, there was none, so he asked Grayson to make the motion. He did not have a full list of the conditions, so Curtis made the motion. Why do we need that? I mean, why wouldn't you just erase that?
That's a great question, Doug. Why do we need that?
Curtis made the motion.
Right,
Curtis
Doug.
made the
You,
motion.
man.
This is like a blow-by-blow, play-by-play, everything that came out of our mouths, which maybe that's the intention, but it sure makes for tough reading. But that's, yeah. This does not
So
end the
I
public
agree.
meeting.
I don't think
Yeah. Just the thing is,
Yeah,
this
I
does not
agree.
end the public meeting. Well, it
Changing it.
didn't end. It just continue writing about the meeting. You don't have to say the meeting didn't end. Oh, okay.
All right. So if you want to send those over to Liz, I don't think that's going to change anything. I don't think it's something that we need to collectively hear to vote on as a change. So
Okay. Yeah, I knew that
go
was
ahead
going to happen.
do that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I will, with nothing else, I'll open it up. Do we have anything else under other business that anyone wants to bring forward?
Patrick, we didn't vote on my motion, or should I withdraw it
Oh,
to
yes.
table the minutes?
Yeah. Do you mind withdrawing it so we can bring forth another motion to approve as noted? Or would you like to wait until after Liz has a chance to see Doug's revisions?
I have to say I'd rather wait.
Okay. Then the motion's still on the table. Do we have a second to table those minutes till February?
I will second it.
Okay. Thanks, Doug. By roll call, Doug,
Yes.
Pam,
Aye.
Julie,
Yes.
Grayson,
Yes.
and Gwen.
Yes.
All right, so tabled until February. So that settles that portion of the agenda. Is there any other discussion topics to bring forward under other business? Anything that the commission members want to bring forward?
Not this month.
Okay, great. Then I will call for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All right. No need to approve that. I think we're all unanimously in favor of that. Thank you very much, everyone.